Water never disappears quietly. It leaves like the first warning shot of a system collapsing. When your faucets stop completely, you don't just lose convenience. You lose control of your environment. You lose the ability to regulate body temperature, clean wounds, cook food, maintain hygiene, and above all else, you lose strategic leverage. In every real crisis, water is the first asset drained and the first reason a household becomes a target. When the tap dies, neighbors panic. Streets shift into unrest. Desperate people begin looking for the closest available supply. And if you make one wrong move, you place yourself on that list. Your operating rules begin now. You do not panic. You do not reveal your reserves. You do not let anyone hear water moving inside your home. You transition from consumer to resource controller. You accept a cold truth. The faucet is not the water source. It is merely the endpoint of a system that has now failed. Once the system falls, you operate as an independent unit. Every action from this moment forward centers on two goals: protecting the water you have and locating the water others are too frightened or too ignorant to notice. Picture yourself standing in your darkened home, taps dead, chaos echoing from the street outside, people shouting, calling for help, banging on doors, hunting the last remaining bottles, and you, still, composed, analytical. Because you understand something they don't. Within a few meters of where you stand, there are still liters of water trapped, forgotten, overlooked. You only need to know how to unlock them cleanly, safely, silently. From this moment, water is no longer something that appears when you turn a handle. It is a tactical objective. Whoever controls water controls survival. Your mission is to secure that survival without leaving a trace. You will extract every drop as if it were the last ammunition in your kit. No waste, no mistakes, no exposure. The first source is the one nearly everyone overlooks because they assume a dead faucet means a dry system. That assumption is fatal. When municipal pressure collapses, the water inside your home's plumbing doesn't vanish. It stays trapped, suspended in the pipes, waiting for someone disciplined enough to access it without contaminating it and without broadcasting their advantage to the outside world. Your task is to become that person. You begin by isolating your home from the external line. You close the main supply valve, not because it brings water back, but because it prevents backflow contamination, prevents pressure shocks, and stops any remaining water from being siphoned outward. Once you seal your perimeter, you shift to the lowest point in your plumbing system. Water obeys gravity even when infrastructure fails. It accumulates in the pipes beneath your lowest sink, basement utility line, or outdoor spigot. This is where you strike first. But you do it with precision. You open a faucet at the highest point in the house to break any vacuum lock. Then you approach the lowest valve slowly. You do not twist aggressively. You do not make noise. You do not allow the metal-on-metal sound to echo through the walls. Sound travels. Water attracts. People notice what they should not notice. As the line breaks and the trapped water begins to flow, you control the stream. You keep containers ready, sanitized, and placed directly under the outlet to prevent splashing. Splashing wastes water and leaves evidence. You allow the water to drain until you reach the sediment layer that has been sitting at the bottom of the pipes. When the flow begins to sputter or darken, you shut it down immediately. Discipline is the difference between clean water and compromised water is a liability, not an asset. As you collect this reserve, you remember one rule: No one outside these walls can know you've done this. People believe the taps are empty. Let them believe that. You must operate with the silence of a sniper and the precision of a surgeon. A typical home can yield several liters of trapped water this way, sometimes enough to sustain a disciplined household for days. This is your first hidden reservoir, extracted quietly, efficiently, and without revealing your position. Carry that control into the next move. Your second reservoir is larger, cleaner, and far more valuable than the water trapped in your pipes. It is the one almost no civilian acknowledges until it is already too late. Your water heater is not an appliance anymore. It is a sealed tactical storage tank holding anywhere from 20 to 80 gallons of potable water. Water protected from airborne contaminants, sunlight, and human interference. In a collapse scenario, that makes it one of the most strategically important assets inside your home, but only if you access it correctly. Your first move is environmental control. You confirm the heater is structurally sound. No leaks, no burns, no electrical instability. You cut power to the unit. You are not heating water now. You are securing it. A powered heater with no replenishing supply becomes a hazard, and hazards create noise, attention, and structural risk. Once the unit is safe, you locate the drain valve near the base. This is the key. But you do not open it yet. First, you lift a hot water faucet somewhere in the house, not to collect water, but to break the vacuum seal inside the tank. Without this step, the tank will resist draining, sputter violently, or pull in contaminants. Precision always precedes extraction. When ready, you place a clean container directly under the drain valve. You open it gradually, never fully, never suddenly. A full twist sends sediment down the line, and sediment tells you the tank is no longer offering clean water. Controlled extraction preserves purity. If the first few seconds carry particulate or discoloration, you flush only a minimal amount, just enough to clear the passage. Then proceed. Once the water runs smooth and clear, you collect. What you now possess is not ordinary tap water. It is the last remaining stock of municipal-grade treated water inside your home. Protected, unexposed, uncontaminated. It is the kind of water desperate people outside would kill for, which is why you follow the next rule with absolute discipline. This operation is silent. You do not drag metal tools. You do not let the valve snap shut. You do not leave containers in visible areas where silhouettes can betray your activity. Stealth is survival. The tank itself must remain unseen and untouched by anyone who enters your home. No one should suspect that you had access to dozens of gallons long after everyone else ran dry. This reservoir buys you days, possibly weeks, if you ration with control and purpose. And as long as no one knows you have it, you maintain the single greatest advantage in a water blackout: invisibility. Carry that discipline into the next source. The third source is one people walk past every day without understanding its value. In a full water shutdown, it becomes a controlled access reserve that only the disciplined will exploit correctly. I am speaking about the toilet tank, the upper chamber, the clean chamber, the one untouched by waste. Civilians confuse the tank with the bowl. That confusion is your advantage. While others overlook it out of ignorance or fear, you will approach it with precision and extract what they fail to claim. But you follow strict protocol. You lift the lid slowly, using both hands, preventing any porcelain clatter that could echo through the structure. Sound is a beacon, and you do not broadcast what you're doing. Once exposed, you evaluate the water. A standard tank holds between 1.5 and 3 gallons of fresh water, provided no chemicals have been introduced. If there are cleaning tablets, dyes, deodorizers, or any chemical agents present, you do not drink this water, ever. You reassign it for sanitation or tool cleaning only. If the tank is clean, you proceed with tactical extraction. You insert a container straight down, never stirring the bottom. Sediment collects along the floor of the tank, and disturbing it contaminates the entire source. You gather from the top layer first, slow movements only, pulling water vertically to avoid internal turbulence. You do not empty the tank completely in one attempt. You leave a shallow layer to avoid revealing that the system has been accessed. Anyone entering your bathroom, friend, guest, stranger, must assume the structure is untouched. Too many signs of resource extraction turn your home into a target. Discretion protects you more than the water itself. Once collected, you treat this water as medium-risk potable. It is often clean, but you assume nothing. You filter and boil it with the same discipline you'd apply to any field source. Environment dictates paranoia, and paranoia keeps you alive. The toilet tank is not glamorous. It is not a high-volume reservoir. But in a siege of dehydration, it is a tactical reserve that can mean the difference between clarity and collapse. Most people refuse to consider it. You are not most people. You are operating in a mode where every overlooked asset becomes an advantage. Extract quietly. Treat thoroughly. Reveal nothing. Maintain the psychological edge that comes from knowing you see resources where others see none. Carry that mindset into the next source. Your fourth source is colder, quieter, and far easier to overlook because it hides in plain sight. While the rest of the house goes dry, your freezer becomes a vault of frozen reserves. Ice cubes, ice packs, frost buildup, and leftover frozen liquids that most civilians dismiss as useless weight. In a grid-down environment, these are not conveniences. They are delayed-release hydration assets, protected by temperature and ignorance alike. You begin with assessment. You open the freezer only once. Every additional second of exposure accelerates thawing and compromises long-term preservation. You move with purpose. You identify all ice trays, bags of ice, built-up frost along the walls, frozen fruits, and any sealed liquid-based items. Everything containing water becomes part of your hydration inventory. Your extraction is controlled. Ice is not melted recklessly. You never place it in open air where it can evaporate or absorb airborne contaminants. You transfer it into a sealed container and allow it to thaw naturally. Slow thawing preserves volume and keeps temperature stable for other perishables, still relying on the freezer's remaining cold. This is more than water. It is thermal capital. And thermal capital extends the life of your food supply. You ensure no meltwater escapes. Every droplet matters. In crisis, waste is an act of self-sabotage. You treat frost the same way. You scrape it with clean, sterilized tools, gather it into containers, and thaw it under controlled conditions. Never directly heat frost or ice unless you have no alternative. The rapid transition creates loss through steam and accelerates contamination risk. Ice from flavored foods or frozen meals is still water. In desperate conditions, it can be filtered, boiled, and purified. You categorize it as convertible water, not ideal, but viable with the correct process. What civilians discard, you convert. Throughout extraction, you maintain silence. Freezer doors slamming, trays clattering, ice cracking. These are signals. Noise suggests activity. Activity suggests resources. Resources attract attention. In collapse scenarios, attention is the enemy. Once thawed, your water must be transferred into opaque, concealed containers. You do not store it in transparent jugs near windows or high-traffic areas. You do not dispose of empty ice bags where others can see them. Every scrap of evidence that your home still has water increases your operational risk. Remember, you are not trying to look like someone with a plan. You are trying to look like everyone else, just another person waiting for the taps to return. Ice extends your timeline. It buys you hours, possibly days. It stabilizes your food. It stabilizes your hydration. And most importantly, it stabilizes your strategic posture. Others will open their freezers, see nothing but frozen leftovers, and assume they have no options. You open yours and see a controlled reservoir, silent, hidden, and ready for conversion. This is the difference between a civilian and a survivor. Carry that difference into the next source. Your fifth source is one almost no one respects, because it does not look like water. It hides inside metal cans, sealed under pressure, preserved by industry and ignored by panic. In a full system water failure, the liquid inside canned foods becomes one of the most overlooked hydration assets in the modern household. And unlike the plumbing or the freezer, this source does not depend on infrastructure, temperature, or external conditions. It depends only on discipline. The discipline to recognize that nothing inside a can is waste anymore. You begin with a shift in mindset. From now on, every can in your home is two supplies, not one. Food and liquid. Beans, corn, peas, soups, fruits, broth, tuna packed in water. Each carries fluid content that civilians throw into the sink without thinking. In collapse conditions, that behavior is suicide. You capture everything. You open cans with controlled precision, avoiding jagged edges, avoiding spillage, avoiding noise. A clattering can opener is a broadcast signal. Metal hitting tile is an announcement. You silence every movement. Once opened, you pour the liquid directly into a clean, concealed container. You do not taste it yet. You do not waste it. You categorize it. Fruit liquids, peaches, pears, pineapples, are high-sugar, high-energy hydration sources. They are ideal for low blood sugar events, mental fatigue, and rapid caloric support. Vegetable liquids, corn, peas, beans, are moderate-risk water substitutes. They may contain sodium or starch, but can still sustain hydration when rationed intelligently. Broths and soups are high-value recovery fluids, providing electrolytes and warmth when boiled. Tuna and chicken water are emergency-only hydration. Treat them as high risk, boil before use, filter if needed. The rule is simple. If it came from a sealed can, it has tactical value. You do not leave cans in visible trash. You do not stack them near windows. You do not allow anyone outside your inner circle to realize you're extracting liquid from what they consider empty. Empty cans signal resourcefulness. Resourcefulness makes you a target. You eliminate all evidence. Canned liquid is not glamorous. It is not abundant. But in a prolonged shutdown, it becomes the difference between maintaining cognitive performance and slipping into dehydration-induced errors. And errors in crisis are fatal. Civilians crave cold water. Survivors use what exists. The liquid inside these cans is not a luxury. It is controlled input, measured, hidden, essential. Extract quietly, store discreetly, consume strategically. This is not just hydration. This is operational endurance. Carry that endurance into the next source. Your sixth source is not a single device, but an entire category of overlooked machines. Quiet appliances scattered throughout your home that collect, hold, or recycle water without anyone noticing. Civilians dismiss them as conveniences. You will treat them as reservoirs. In a total faucet shutdown, These devices become auxiliary water systems operating inside your structure, hidden in plain sight. Your first target is the dehumidifier. Most households don't consider it a water collector, yet it extracts moisture from the air and condenses it into liquid form. The result is a steady supply of captured water, unclean, but usable. You approach with precision. You remove the collection tank silently, pour the contents into a secondary container, and immediately evaluate clarity and odor. This water is not drinkable without treatment. It lacks minerals, may contain mold spores or metal residues, and behaves more like distilled condensate than natural water. But it is invaluable for sanitation, washing tools, cleaning wounds after boiling, and extending boiling reserves. You never rely on it for direct consumption, unless processed thoroughly with filtration and heat. A disciplined survivor assigns every water source a role, and this one belongs to utility. Next, you move to the dishwasher. After its final cycle, the sump at the bottom often retains a pool of trapped water. Civilians ignore it because they cannot see it, but you know where to look. You open the machine slowly, avoiding hinge noise, and use a clean cup to ladle the remaining water out. This water is classified as low-grade utility water, useful for cleaning, flushing, or boiling for non-ingestion tasks. You do not drink it unless desperation overrides protocol and you can purify it thoroughly. Then comes the washing machine. Like the dishwasher, it retains water at the bottom of the drum after its last cycle. You tilt the machine carefully, controlling the angle, extracting whatever remains. The water may contain detergent residue, but residue does not eliminate its value. It becomes sanitation water. You use it to wash clothing, wipe surfaces, maintain hygiene, or clean tools. In collapse, cleanliness is not cosmetic. It is infection control. It is operational readiness. Finally, you consider humidifiers. Ironically, they are often filled with manually added water, not collected water, but in many cases, they still retain residual amounts. You extract it the same way. Controlled, silent, meticulous. Throughout this process, you maintain a hierarchy. Not all water sources are equal. Not all are meant to sustain hydration. The undisciplined mix categories and get sick. You do not. You assign roles: potable, convertible, utility, forbidden. Appliance water belongs to utility unless proven otherwise. It frees your drinkable reserves. It protects your strategic supply. It keeps you functional while others spiral toward dehydration or contamination. Every liter of utility water you recover is a liter of clean water you do not have to waste on hygiene or cleaning. That is how you extend survival timelines, through discipline and categorization, not luck. Most households are filled with these machines. Most civilians overlook them. You won't. You are extracting water from a structure designed to hide it, and the more you uncover, the more invisible your advantage becomes. Carry that invisibility into the next source. Your seventh source is the only one that does not rely on infrastructure, stored reserves, or forgotten appliances. It is the sky itself, a moving reservoir that civilians misunderstand and survivors weaponize. Rain is impartial. It falls on everyone. But only a disciplined operator turns rainfall into a concealed, repeatable water supply inside their own structure. You are not setting up gutters. You are not placing barrels outside. Those tactics expose you. They advertise that you still have the capability to gather water while others spiral into desperation. Visibility invites conflict. Your method must be invisible. You begin by identifying interception zones inside your home, locations where rain can be captured without drawing eyes. A slightly opened window on the leeward side of the house. A balcony shielded by overhang. A doorway that can be cracked open briefly only during peak rainfall, when noise from the storm masks your operation. You deploy improvised catch systems, cooking pots, bowls, sheets of plastic curved into channels, clean containers that blend into the environment. Nothing metallic that clangs. Nothing that reflects light outward. Every tool must operate silently and remain hidden from external angles. You avoid placing containers where they can be silhouetted by streetlights or viewed from neighboring windows. You operate only with interior angles in mind, always asking the same question. If I were outside looking in, could I detect movement? Detection is defeat. Once the rain begins, you do not rush. Rushing creates noise, and noise attracts. You maintain calm extraction, adjusting container placement with slow, deliberate movement. You let the storm do the work. You do not overfill containers. An overflowing container wastes water, creates auditory signatures, and leaves puddles that reveal your activity. Overflow is amateur behavior, and amateurs don't survive crises. Once the rainfall subsides, you immediately seal your containers. Rainwater is clean at the moment of fall, but becomes contaminated the moment it contacts surfaces. You filter it through cloth, boil it, or treat it depending on the risk profile of your environment. You never assume purity. You assume nothing. In a collapse, paranoia is not weakness. It is protocol. If the rain is frequent, you rotate containers, sanitize them between uses, and store the water in discreet, opaque vessels deep inside your home. You do not leave buckets sitting out after the storm. Even the sight of drying water residue on a balcony can tell the wrong person that you are gathering resources. Every raindrop you harvest must be invisible. Rainwater is opportunistic. It is inconsistent. But when tapped with discipline, it becomes an infinite renewable source that government collapse cannot interrupt. Infrastructure failure cannot corrupt, and human desperation cannot monopolize. While others sprint into the open with pans and buckets, broadcasting their hunger, their fear, their vulnerability, you stay inside, hidden, silent, efficient. Rain does not reward the loud, it rewards the prepared, and preparation is what separates the survivors from the statistics. Carry that preparation into the next phase. Extraction means nothing without preservation. A civilian celebrates the moment they find water. A survivor understands that the real battle begins after extraction. The battle to keep that water safe, stable, and free from biological, chemical, and tactical compromise. Your ninth phase is the purification protocol, the system that ensures every drop you consume strengthens you instead of weakening you. Contaminated water doesn't just make you sick. It slows your reaction time, clouds your judgment, drains your strength, and exposes you to infections that become lethal when medical support no longer exists. Hydration without purity is a slow execution. You will not make that mistake. Your first rule is absolute. Assume all unverified water wants to harm you. Rainwater, tank water, pipe water, canned water, each carries its own threats. Clear does not mean clean. Odorless does not mean safe. Taste is irrelevant. Your standard is not hope. Your standard is control. You begin with settling. Water that contains sediment, rust, particulate, or organic matter must rest. Stillness forces solids downward. You do not disturb the container. You do not swirl. Movement prolongs contamination. Once the bottom layer forms, you siphon from the top with slow, surgical precision, avoiding even a single millimeter of disturbed sediment. Next comes filtration. You improvise when necessary. Cloth, coffee filters, layered fabric pressed under tension. This removes visible threats but not microscopic ones. Most civilians stop here. They trust the illusion of clarity. That illusion kills them. Your filtration is merely the first gate. The second gate is heat. Boiling is the battlefield equalizer. Nothing biological survives rolling heat for over a minute, and at higher altitudes you extend that timeline. You keep a tight lid on the container to prevent evaporation loss. Evaporation is lost assets. You cool the water only in sealed conditions, preventing airborne contamination. Heat solves biology, but it does not neutralize chemicals. That is why your third gate is chemical assessment. Water from appliances, toilet tanks, or industrial cans may contain detergents, fragrances, metals, dyes, or cleaning agents. These do not vanish with heat. For these waters, you assign roles: utility, sanitation, emergency only. You maintain iron discipline in not drinking water that was never meant for internal use. Dehydration is dangerous. Poisoning is worse. You select the threat you can recover from. The next protocol is storage. Purified water must never be stored in open containers. Open containers invite dust, insects, mold spores, and airborne toxins. You use opaque vessels whenever possible. Light degrades water over time, warms it, fuels microbial regrowth. You seal every lid completely. You label containers with extraction method and purification status to avoid confusion in the dark or under stress. No container should produce sound when moved. Sloshing is noise. Noise is information. Information attracts desperate people. A household that moves quietly is a household that survives. Then you establish rotation. Water is not immortal. Stored incorrectly, it becomes a breeding ground for bacteria invisible to the naked eye. You cycle through your reserves with the discipline of ammunition rotation. Oldest first, newest sealed for later use. You never allow a container to sit forgotten. Forgetfulness is a civilian habit. You do not operate like a civilian anymore. Finally, you enforce OPSEC. No one outside your trusted perimeter should ever know you possess clean water. Not by sound, not by smell, not by the clatter of boiling pots or the shine of stored containers. Clean water is the most valuable currency in a collapse. It is worth more than food, fuel, or weapons. People kill for it. People steal for it. People follow anyone who seems to have it. Your mission is simple. You do not look like someone worth following. You look as dry and desperate as everyone else, even when you are not. Purification is not just chemistry. It is survival psychology. It ensures every drop you drink strengthens your body, sharpens your mind, and keeps you fully operational while the world around you degrades. This protocol is discipline. Discipline is control. And control is survival. Carry that control into the final directive. Survival does not end when you secure water. That is where civilians stop. That is where amateurs relax. That is where mistakes compound and predators begin to notice. The final directive is not about hydration. It is about operational security. The discipline that keeps you alive long after others have burned through their reserves. OPSEC is not a tactic. It is a posture, a way of existing inside an environment where information is currency, and anyone with less than you is a potential threat. When the faucets stop, society fractures along predictable lines. The loud panic first, the unprepared beg next, the violent emerge last. Your objective is to stay beneath their threshold of detection. That begins with silence. Every action involving water, extraction, purification, transfer, or consumption must be soundless. Clattering lids, boiling pots, dripping containers, even the rhythm of footsteps toward where you store your supplies. All of it is information you cannot afford to broadcast. Desperation sharpens hearing. Hunger sharpens attention. And a neighborhood with no water is a hunting ground for the observant. You eliminate all indicators. You do not dump wastewater outside where it can be seen. You do not leave containers drying in the open. You do not store water in clear vessels visible from windows. Even the shape of your trash can reveal your advantage. Empty canned goods, water bottles, or filters tell a story. Your story. You ensure no one can read it. Your next layer of control is deception. You project the same scarcity as everyone else. You complain about the outage with the same tone. You allow others to see you carry small amounts of water that look barely enough. You never appear strong, supplied, or confident. You blend into the fatigue around you. Predator psychology is simple. They avoid targets that look uncertain or equal. They attack those who look superior. You never look superior. You look neutral, forgettable, invisible. Inside your walls, however, you operate with precision. Your reserves are stored in distributed caches, not in one central location that can be compromised in a single breach. Multiple small containers hidden in low-access areas are safer than a single obvious reservoir. If someone were to force entry, they would not immediately locate your true supply. You ration with intelligence. Rationing is not deprivation, it is timeline extension. It is the conversion of liquid volume into days of operational clarity. You set strict intake limits and do not violate them. Thirst is a discomfort, not a command. The undisciplined drink whenever they feel. You drink according to plan. Social interactions become controlled engagements. You do not share. You do not barter with water. You do not admit to having more than anyone else. Generosity is a luxury reserved for stable worlds. In collapse, generosity exposes your position and drains your advantage. You stay aware of your perimeter. Sound patterns, footprints, people watching from windows, people asking the wrong questions. Crises magnify human behavior, and one person suspecting you have what they need is enough to trigger a chain reaction. OPSEC is not paranoia. It is anticipatory survival. You read intention before it becomes action. You observe without being observed. You prepare for entry attempts long before they happen. And above all, you remain adaptable. You recalibrate hydration needs, extraction points, and defensive posture as conditions change. Water security is never static. It evolves with the crisis. Your survival depends on evolving faster. There is no finish line, no moment where you made it. As long as the faucets remain dry, the threat persists. As long as others go thirsty, you stay concealed. Water is leverage. Leverage is power, and power must remain hidden. This final directive is simple, cold, and absolute. Control your water. Control your silence. Control your narrative. Do that, and you outlast the collapse. Fail, and you become another casualty of a world that rewards only the prepared.